you. So thank you, Noemi, and welcome everybody to this COFSA consciousness practice session on nonviolent communication. We're very excited to have this session with Gina, Adam, and Shami. I was just saying how many of us know that working on food systems can be very, very tricky. There's often lots of conflicts, tensions. There's the vegans against those raising livestock. There's those who think that we should be protecting forests and those that need to be expanding land to feed growing urban populations. There's the industry versus smallholders and so on. So very complex arena where communication and connection is key. And so probably non-violent communication can help. And we're very lucky that Gina, Adam, and Shami, each of them have a rich experience, both in non-violent communication, but also in areas that touch the food systems in various ways. So we'll start off our session by having a little round of introduction where they can tell us a little bit more about their work in NVC and how they see it relate to food systems. But then we're going to do a practice. We'll have Gina and Adam demonstrate an exercise that we can do inspired by these techniques of nonviolent communication, and you'll get to practice in pairs. And after having practiced in pairs, we'll break out in 3 groups. Each of the groups will be hosted by one of our experts here, and that will be an opportunity to go deeper with your questions and see how you experience the exercise and so on before coming all back together. So very practice-oriented moments. And with that, let us dive straight into the topic. And I'm going to ask Shami. Shami, if you can please introduce yourself, how you got to nonviolent communication, and how you see it relate to food systems in where you are in India and in your life. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Charlotte. So basically, I am Shami and I live in India. And I've been working on food and nonviolent communication for some time. NVC, yeah, both started my journey at the same time, around 12 years ago. And I can give a little bit of a background. So I was earlier into filmmaking and living in Bombay. And there I kind of, I was eating regular food, which is very oily and all kinds of food and tea, coffee, cigarettes, and Disprints, medicine for headaches was very common for me. And so with all the ingredients that I had in that time in my life, I developed asthma, which was a pretty natural thing to happen. Because, one was the pollution of Bombay and the stress of the shootings and plus the food and everything, and this. So when I got that, I took the inhaler in the beginning. And then I met some people who told me about self-healing. He said that because when I was taking it, I was active, but it was draining my energy. So someone talked about, self-healing, and then I got into it. Then I got into interest in food. What food do I eat? So I started with fasting and then not eating much oil, then plant-based diet, all those things I started doing, more raw. And over the years, I got rid of my inhaler. That was one thing. So with the food part, I realized that, I could cut out things which were creating toxins. But then I also noticed that when I developed asthma, I was also going through some emotional crisis. So I thought, okay, these physical toxins can be taken care of. But what about the emotional toxins that happen in the mind, when some things don't work out for you? And I that time came across nonviolent communication, and I saw that was just the next stage of my journey, because food and healing I was doing, but then healing needed a lot of emotional healing also. So because I was noticing that whenever there would be stress, I would get my symptoms of asthma. So so before I was practicing nonviolent communication, I can tell you that whenever I would sleep in the night, I would have some person to blame that day who had spoiled my day and some stress. But after getting into this, I could then learn to express openly, listen to other people, either engage with them. Even if I don't engage with them, I could still mentally understand them, and it won't be that triggering thing for me. So it gave me peace also. And then my journey with food and NVC together went on. I was sharing nonviolent communication. We were organizing NVC conventions, and in those conventions, I would be taking care of the food. And my passion for food was really superb. And And then I even got into running an organic kitchen, with the students in the film school. And I was just volunteering, and I was organizing all the organic farmers and people. And so there were a lot of challenges there because I was catering to 100 people who had different tastes and preferences. And I had my idea of healthy food, and they had some other ideas. Some really liked it, some didn't like it. So there were a lot of commotion over that. So, anyways, I also learned that when you're working with food, you have to also learn on how you talk about food and how you share about food and how you accept different kind of preferences for food that people have. So anyway, that's one part. And when I speak again, I will talk about Fukuoka, who's an organic natural farmer, who I think is a very non-violent in his approach and aligned to non-violent communication also. So I'll stop here and I'll pass the mic to Charlotte here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shami. Beautiful introduction that reminds us of the non-violence that starts with non-violence to ourselves, and the link between the physical diet, the food diet, and the mental diet. Thank you. Adam, what was your journey? And does it relate to what Shami just described? Maybe it's different. I mean, love to hear from you.
Thanks, Charlotte, for asking. Like, my journey was slightly different, I would say. Years ago, in my 20s, I was, you would say, an environmental activist. I was quite active during my studies. And that time I really believed that we need more facts, more data, more arguments, and we will then win something. We will make some change. And one day I kind of hit the wall when I met nonviolence and nonviolent communication, and I realized it's not only about that. It's about arguments and facts, but it's also about how we relate, how we are able to meet, and how we are able to have a difficult conversation, and how we are able to navigate in a conflict. Like Charlotte mentioned, that in the food systems there are tensions, there are conflicts. It's sometimes uncomfortable. So this is what happened to me, and from researcher, I'm an activist. I moved more to something else, and now I work as a facilitator and mediator. I'm based in Czechia, and for a couple of years, I've been facilitating, for instance, a meeting between foresters and gamekeepers and farmers in several places in Czechia, also on the national level. And I've been also working with the Small Farmers Initiative in Czechia. And yeah, that's it. This is my story in brief.
Wow, thank you. So we're going around the food system, both geographically, but also here we were talking about consumption and an organic response with Shami. Now we're down to the farmers. And Gina, what's your story then?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I first came across NVC in 2012. And at that time, I was working in the kind of international development humanitarian sector. And in 2013, I started working at the Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, and then a few years later with the World Food Programme. And I was very much consumed also with everything that I was passionately taking in about NVC that was inspiring me so much. And in particular, if I would summarize the three core practices of NVC, it would be number one, to understand what's important to me. Number two, communicating that to others in a way that is likely to be understood. And number three, hearing the essence behind what someone else is saying. And especially when I was working in the UN system, but really when I was working in organizational settings, what I often came across was a situation where I wasn't convinced, sitting in meetings, that what one person was saying was fully understood before the next person responded. And then decisions would get made and new policies and strategies would be formulated. And I would be doubting if this was really the most effective way of doing things. I had this idea that, you know, if people could really hear each other and really connect to the essence of what was important to people, then maybe more coherent decisions were going to get made. And so for me, I became very passionate about how can we collaborate in a way that is coming from a more of a space of coherence. And also for me, kind of what I'm maybe most passionate about with the essence of NVC is that it's a practice that creates connection between people. And for me, connection is really something that can enhance collaboration 1,000-fold. when I experience connection with another human being, it's fun to work with them. Then I want to cooperate, and I enjoy exchanging ideas and implementing them together. And at the moment, I'm teaching some introductory sessions of nonviolent communication with the FAO of the UN, the Food and Agriculture Organization, in one of the divisions of the headquarters. And I'm so enjoying witnessing how it's contributing to connection and empathy between the colleagues there in the team. And it's very, very easy for me to imagine that this quality of connection will have kind of a ripple effect into the quality of collaboration that's happening in the team there. So yeah, that's a little bit about me.
That's beautiful. So I know each of you is really an expert in this kind of deep listening and listening to the essence. So I'm curious now what you have heard in the essence of what each of you have shared and how it resonates with you and your own practice of NVC. Shami, would you go back to you based on maybe what you wanted to add before, but also what you ever heard? How does this resonate, and how do you feel NVC can play this role in food systems transformation? If you can unmute first, please.
Thank you. So the role that NVC can play, it could be at various levels. One could be if as a consumer, how do I experience food, and how do I make choices for food, How do we make ethical choices? That's a question. So for example, if as Gina was saying, connecting to the needs, So if I'm connecting, when I'm making choices, what to eat, what not to eat, and I'm connected to my need, then I will be making more grounded choices. Because we meet a lot of needs. Those are also needs, but then I have to see which need I'm prioritizing when I'm eating a certain thing. So for example, like if I have to go to, friends invite me to a cafe coffee day or a McDonald's kind of a place, because that's a hangout place. So I might make a choice to go there because I want to hang out with them. I'm not making a choice because I want to nurture myself or nourish myself, So it's important for us to know that which need are we meeting with that, because especially with kind of food patterns that people are having, where a lot of mindless, or I wouldn't say mindless, it's like such a programmed eating where certain kind of food is being pushed, and people are not asking the questions for it. And they are turning into addictions also. So, when people are more aligned to nonviolent communication, they will make more, I would say, more sustainable choices, because when you look at needs, you will look at, one is your own needs, then needs of the farmers, then needs of the nature. Then you see like how we can, work together. Rather than if I consume in such a way that, I get my oranges from Peru, if I'm getting that, then what is the cost that I'm creating, So one need that I'm meeting, but I'm also creating an unmet need in that. So I would say nonviolent communication will help in ethical choices, and also negotiating with authorities or with governments over different things, farmers, whoever is, So having a space for dialogue where everybody can talk about what is important to them, and try to understand what is important to other people. So, spaces of conflict and all those can also be taken care of in a better way if we have a great understanding of nonviolent communication, and try to create a world where everybody's needs matter. So this is something I would like to add. Thanks.
Thank you. And I really like how you're already helping us understand that at the heart of NVC is really this understanding of my needs, as you're saying, my body's needs, but also the needs of the other. And when what you were saying, Shami, I hear also the needs of the earth, the needs of the environment, the needs of the producers, but also the needs of the policymakers, of the food distributors. It's very, very interesting. Adam, you mentioned that you were working also with farmers. And I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about how that works in practice, and how NVC comes into that and how they relate to it. I mean, they're often at the heart of quite challenging situations themselves. So.
Yeah. Thanks, Charlotte. It would take hours, these stories, but I will try to speak the essence. I like how Xiaomi brought this dimension of me as a person who has choice. So I can choose based on my needs, my values, and I can make a choice and maybe make a difference from only myself. And for me, NVC has more dimensions. This is the first, then it's interpersonal dimension, which means it's about me and the other person, how we relate, how we collaborate, or how we go through a conflict. What do we do? Do we separate or not? And then there's another dimension of a group or a system. And this is where I'm working as a facilitator. So my experience working with bigger groups and sometimes multi-stakeholder meetings with a lot of tension sometimes is that NVC helps as an operating system or software. So it's not changing everything. We need more, but this is quite a good software, maybe the best I know for how we are together, how we communicate, how we relate, how we try to collaborate even in when we have very different perspectives, very different opinions and goals. And one short story would be that sometimes what really helps is bring NVC to a group, let's say a movement of small farmers in Czechia. The most of the work is about understanding each other. It takes time to really to be on the same page, to find who we are, what we are looking for, where are we standing, what are our beliefs, what are our values. So we are doing it on the group level, this first pillar. Gina mentioned 3 practices. This is the number 1, self-connection, who we are, what are our values. And so this is one example, how we are just having these discussions for the movement of small farmers. And the second example I would briefly mention is when we meet with the enemies. Those are people, businessmen or hunters in Czechia. There's a big conflict between farmers and hunters and foresters. And it seems that NVC helps to facilitate. But the condition is we meet in one room. I don't know any magic that would help on social media or in the world globally. But if we meet in one room, we are just able to enter the room and we are open for some discussion that helps from my experience. Because we focus on what was already mentioned. Also, Gina said, what is the essence for us? How can we listen each other? How can we be together? Because we all want our grandkids to live in a nice place, right? We all have this in common. Now we are fighting, but maybe there's any change. So this is coming to my mind but I'm very brief.
Thank you very much. And Gina, what Adam says resonates very much with what you were saying about the quality of connection being central to what NVC facilitates. Is there anything you'd like to add on to what we've heard so far and from your own experience?
Yeah, just maybe to, I suppose, enrich what I already said around how much when I experience connection with another person, an intrinsic desire to cooperate with them is a side effect of it. And it doesn't come from coercion, and it doesn't come from a sense of I have to do this, or it just comes from I want to do this because I'm experiencing. It comes from the care that's intrinsically in me, and a mutual care and a sense of, a flow that kind of just comes naturally as a result of connection. And for me, that's a wonderful way of creating beauty in the world and in life. And I have a deep trust that the systems and the and the projects that we can create will be more coherent and more beautiful when it starts from a basis of connection.
Yeah. Thank you very much to all 3 of you. And I'd just like to highlight something that maybe you haven't mentioned explicitly, but which is, I think you embody it so much that maybe you take it for granted, but it's the empathy, a position of empathy and respect and trust that we all have some deep common ground. And I say that because last week I found myself facilitating a kind of a debate between 2 politicians from different political parties. One was a Green Party and the other one was a farmer from a more right-wing party. And those tend to kind of clash. I was very, very nervous. I knew they'd had a few hiccups in previous encounters. but it turned out to be a lovely encounter. But what I found was really also as a facilitator, the importance of being empathetic with each one, that everybody felt in a safe space, and felt not, put on the spot or challenged and respected, and that we trust they're coming from, a point of good intention. So I just want to say that because you haven't mentioned it, from what I hear you say, but also from our interactions in preparing the call. I think this is something very powerful that somebody who's been working on nonviolent communication brings across. So I think we're ready for a bit of practice, right? And so this practice is going to be actually in 3 stages. I had a partial introduction. We're going to start with Adam guiding us a little moment of connection with ourselves. So that was the first part, right? Awareness of ourselves. And then Adam and Gina will demonstrate a practice in 2, and then you will get to do the practice in pairs, and then we will come back briefly in plenary, but then to go back out into 3 groups, because there are many of you, and we'll have more opportunities for exchange in 3 smaller groups, each one guided by Adam, Gina, or Shami. So with that, Adam, we are in your hands.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. So I will start in a moment. And we are 62 people here. I don't know where everybody's coming from, but I guess you have some link, some connection to food systems. And I would like to now take maybe 2-3 minutes of your time and tune in some kind of land in the topic before we will go for more practice. And I will have some questions, open questions for everybody. And if you want, you can close your eyes for 2 minutes, or you can take a paper and write it on the paper. It's only for yourself. Or you can just use this time just to reflect where you are, what does it bring, these questions. And that's it. Then we will proceed after. So I would like now to invite you for looking at yourself as someone connected to food systems. Maybe you are doing advocacy, maybe you are farmers, maybe you have different roles. And I will offer you these questions, and after each I will give you 10-15 seconds of silence to just digest it, or maybe answer to yourself. It's up to you. Just feel free to participate in silence. So I would like to start with a question. If you are looking at yourself and food systems, what is the main reason why you are doing what you are doing? Why is it important? Why does it matter? And what is so important to you about your work? Question number 2. If you look at your activities or at your work, and you open the doors to future, what would you like to see in your work in future? Imagine what would really help you and what would support you in doing fully what you are doing, maybe fulfilling the highest potential of your activities. Question number 3. If you are looking at your activities and your potential struggles, what are the challenges you are facing? What is blocking you in your work? What is taking your energy? And the last question I would like to offer, number 4. in all that, what gives you strength? What gives you motivation? What are your resources? Resources and your support. Are those people? Are those initiatives? Are those non-humans? What gives you strength? Okay, that's it. Thank you very much for questions. That was it. And the idea was just to support connection to the topic, where you are, your place in it. And I think we can proceed now.
Thank you very much, Adam. And I see a little question from Daji in the chat. Hello, Daji. No need to write in the
Hello.
chat. Hello. No need to add the question to answer the questions in the chat. This is more for yourselves. And you'll see that it might also come in handy in the little exercise in pairs that we're going to do now. So now I think Gina and Adam, watch carefully. They're going to be demonstrating NVC in action. And this will be what you then do yourself. So please pay attention, and then we'll be all going into pairs to do the same thing. Over to you.
Thank you. Yeah. So to lead you into this exercise, this practice, I'd like to start, first of all, to invite you, everyone in the room, to think of a situation recently when someone did something that you did not like. It can be in relation to your work on food systems, or if that's not readily available to you, then think of any example, just of some situation where someone did something that you did not like. And you can write it down for yourself. You don't have to put it in the chat, just keep it for yourself and hold it for later. And also hold the example as while you're engaging with what we're sharing here. So I can say for my part, whenever someone does something that I don't like, my first tendency is that I fall into habits of thinking that are rooted in what Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of NVC, called the jackal. He used these metaphors of the jackal and the giraffe, and then he used these puppets. This was the jackal puppet. And he used this as a metaphor for teaching NVC. So the habits that I go into are these jackal habits of thinking. And it's a way of thinking that's rooted in convictions around what is good, bad, right, and wrong. So when someone does something that I don't like, immediately my mind goes to a kind of conviction about what it is that's good, bad, right, and wrong. And it comes out in language in a number of ways. It comes out in the language of judgment. This person is so selfish, this person is so inconsiderate, or maybe they also come out in judgments towards myself. Oh, I should be more considerate, or I should be more generous in my thinking, this kind of thinking, judgment. Or it comes out in the language of should and have to. This person should not have said this, or this person should really be more X, Y, or Z. Or maybe it comes out in the language of comparison. So I've seen many people, and they would all agree that this person, is wrong in this situation. This kind of the language, or this person is better than that person, or I'm not as good as that person. This language of comparison. So notice with your example that you wrote down of when someone did something that you didn't like, notice how this way of thinking might come in as a habit, as like an immediate habit. And I'd like to offer a little demo with the help of Adam to become a bit more familiar with how these habits of jackal thinking manifest. So Adam, do you have a time recently, an example of someone that did something that you didn't like?
So Gina, I would like to step in the role of my friend who's a farmer who runs a community-supported agriculture. Is it okay?
You're stepping into his role, but my invitation would be that it's something that's alive for you, Adam. Is that okay? Do you have an example that's alive for you? Where is it the person that did something that you did not like?
it happens to him very often. So he's sharing, and this is connected to our work here.
Okay,
And
I see. So you're playing him.
Yeah, I can do that because
Okay.
we had many interactions.
Okay, sure. So Adam is morphing into another person.
Yeah.
I just want to, my only worry is that anyone will believe that I myself don't have jackal thinking, and I do. I have so much jackal thinking all the time. So I just want that to be known, that in the role of facilitator, it's very far from true that I'm exempt from jackal thinking. Okay, but so let's go for it, Adam. So who are you? What's your name?
So I'm Peter, let's say, and I run a community-supported agriculture, and I'm part of that association of all small farmers, and I have many strong opinions.
Okay, so Peter, what happened that someone did something that you didn't like recently?
Gina, it's terrible. Like everybody's against us, the entire system. And now even people from our association told me, do you know what? Did they say that we are too expensive, that we should be more inclusive, more, I don't know, solidarity. That's what we need. So this is such a, I feel like betrayed, like that we are just too expensive. And they don't see what we are doing, at what cost. They have no idea how actually low budget is what we have. So it's terrible. And I don't know, maybe we should be cheaper, but then it would be like under minimum wage, which is, I don't want. So yeah, I really took it as a betrayal from people from our association that we are too expensive. It's not true.
Yeah. It feels like a betrayal that people say you're too expensive. And they don't see what you're doing or how low a budget you're working on.
Yeah, because they maybe find it's a charity. They think it's a charity, but
yeah,
it's the reality that we don't have much income. We can't really pay people in a way we would like to, but this, that we are too expensive.
Yeah. Okay, so it's, yeah. Okay, thank you, Adam. Are you happy? Is there anything else that's alive in you that you would like to share, that you're outraged about or annoyed about, before I move to the next part?
I think they also envy us because we are quite, well, we are surviving, so we are successful. So they also envy us, maybe.
Yeah. Thank you. Anything else, Adam?
Yeah, but maybe we should be cheaper. I don't know. Maybe I should do it differently. I'm not a good manager. I don't know. Maybe I'm just not a good manager.
Yeah. I just want to highlight here what tends to happen also for me is I start with having my jackals out towards the other people, and then sneakily the jackal turns in towards myself. And I start to think, oh, but maybe it's true what they're saying. Maybe I should be cheaper. Maybe I'm just not a good manager. So it's the habit of the jackal, it goes both ways. It faces out towards the other and it faces in towards myself. I'm curious if you recognize this way of thinking also in your life. I would love to see some nods, if only if it's true for you. Thank you. Yeah. And when I'm in jackal mode, when I'm in this mode, I'm very much convinced about the truth of my thoughts. In that moment, it's like I'm very sure that everything that I'm thinking is true, even if the thoughts are contradicting themselves. Some part of me is convinced that it's true. And the trouble is, especially when my jackals are facing outwards to the other person, is that the other person, the one that I'm thinking about, will disagree with me. So that's why very often with this way of thinking, conflict happens or discord happens. And in reality, what I've learned with the help of dear Marshall Rosenberg, the creator of NVC, is that every jackal, every judgment is a tragic expression of an unmet need. I've put the quote in the chat. In other words, every single one of these statements that you see written here in purple, in the language of judgment, comparison, the language of should or have to, all of these are actually an expression of something that's very important to, what was the name of your person?
Peter.
To Peter. Something that Peter values very much. And something that actually all humans can relate to with compassion. So I would like to invite you to, I'm going to share a different screen now. And I want to invite you to have a little exercise in what Charlotte was referring to earlier, in empathy. And actually, what I would prefer to do rather than sharing this is I would like to share this list in the chat and invite you to open this document that I'm sharing in the chat now. It doesn't seem to be working. Okay, never mind. When you remember what you were seeing in the whiteboard, in the language of judgment that Peter was expressing, every single one of those statements was actually just an expression of something that, some kind of value, some kind of need that you see on this list. So I'd love to invite you to make a wild guess. It's really a wild guess as to what do you imagine is important to Peter. And I very much welcome you to unmute your microphone and just to throw out a word in the form of a question. What might be important to Peter when he says the things that he said? I'll briefly share the other screen again.
Self-esteem.
Oh, sorry, say again.
Self-esteem and dignity.
Yeah, self-esteem and dignity. So actually what I would do,
I see in the chat appreciation, recognition, respect, needs to be seen.
Okay, 1 minute. What I would really like to do is I would like to manage to get this list into the chat so that you can have access to it and we can go back to the whiteboard. If anyone else has access to a needs list, Adam or Shami, you're welcome to support by putting it in, because for some reason.
Support and help.
Okay. So thank you for all these examples. And I'm going to write them here in a different color. Would someone be willing to repeat some of the words that came up?
So, appreciation, recognition, respect, need to be seen.
Yeah.
Wholeness.
What was that?
Wholeness.
Wholeness.
Yes, wholeness, I think.
Wholeness.
Wholeness, thank you. Yeah, interdependence, acceptance.
There's connection.
Yeah.
Understanding.
Freedom. Okay, loving. So this, what you see here, is really what I call the more beautiful reality. It's kind of the truth behind everything anyone is ever saying is actually these qualities or these values, these needs that live deep inside of me and in all human beings. The truth is, I cannot know for sure if they don't see what we're doing. Or I cannot know for sure if they envy us. I may really truly believe that to be true in the moment, but I cannot know for sure. But what I do know is that I long for support. I long for appreciation. I long for recognition and respect, to be seen. I would love for a sense of interdependence and freedom, to be accepted and for acceptance and to understand and be understood, and for connection. So I'm curious to hear a little bit, when you see these two different colors, these two different rows, what happens for you? How do you react internally? What comes up for you when you see the difference? Because actually, it's what all of this is really just an expression of this. And what happens for you when you see this in contrast to this? You're very welcome to share your voice, or you're very welcome to share in the chat. And also, Peter, Adam Peter, I'm curious as well if any of these guesses as to the needs, whether they resonate for you or whether anything else comes up as well. Any other needs that feel very important to you, Peter, that you would like to add?
Thank you very much for these moments of empathy. For me, what is very much alive is support from this circle. I'm longing for support and recognition, and appreciation, respect is there as well. And yeah, and understanding. That's pretty much it. So these are the core.
Yeah. So some of these qualities that were guessed by the participants, some of them really resonate strongly. The one for support and recognition, and the other ones that you mentioned, right, Adam? Mm-hmm. They touch the core of what you're after. Shami, would you like to add something?
Yeah, for me, actually, I'm able to see myself and hear myself when I see the needs.
Yeah.
Because earlier, when in Peter's shoes, if I was saying all those judgments, there was a lot of pain and friction and negativity in that. Even though I was saying it, I was not like, there was no like relief in it. I was not breathing deeply. It was like very frantic for me.
Yeah.
But see these needs, I feel that I am seeing myself such a wanting such beautiful things.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of what I'm wanting, because there was some discomfort in the previous one. And I trust that others will also see me. I want them to see me for this beauty,
Yeah. So it's like you can connect to the part where connection exists.
Yeah.
When you look at the orange words, there's a trust that this is where we can relate, where we can connect.
Yeah.
I can see also in the chat that it feels less contracted. The left feels contracted, the right feels expansive. That you experience compassion, appeasement, connection rather than separation. That this understanding gives you empathy and compassion for Peter. To be honest, also insecurity, unsafety about being so vulnerable in this compassionate mindset towards people who might harm you. Yes, it's more of a vulnerable space being in the universe of needs. Absolutely. Thank you for naming that too.
Yeah, and one more thing I can say that when I see these needs, I don't feel that one of us is right or wrong.
Yeah.
I don't see that one of us has to win. At least I'm seeing that he has some needs. If I'm speaking in the other lens, if I'm the one who's buying stuff and finding it expensive.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's no competition in that sense. When I see, I can still have my needs. That's what I'm saying.
Yes. Needs can coexist. Needs don't have to conflict. Absolutely. Thanks, Shami. So I would like to invite you now to practice this with your own example in breakout rooms. So take your example, the one that you wrote down earlier, or any other example that has come into your mind since the start. And what you're invited to do in the breakout rooms is exactly the same thing that Shami and I just did. And
sorry, Adam and you.
Sorry?
You said Adam and you did it. No, you said Shami and I did.
Oh, sorry, Adam, thank you. So what you're invited to is you think of a person that you have a judgment about, a situation where you got triggered, where you got irritated, where you got hurt, where you got disappointed. And then you go into a breakout room and your partner will share their screen You can do that the way I did, by pressing the green button on the bottom that says share screen, and then clicking on the whiteboard in the background. If that feels too tricky for you, you can also just work in the chat. And then the exercise is 2 steps. The first one is you celebrate your jackals. This is a moment where you allow yourself to be completely uncensored, the same way Peter did, with all the thoughts of judgment, comparison, have to, should, that you're having towards the other person, or also towards yourself. And your partner can write them down. They can be your secretary. They can just really write them down exactly verbatim the way you're saying them. This is your moment to be uncensored, to bring your jackal out. And then afterwards, you take your needs list, and this is where it would be really helpful for you to have access to the needs list.
Is it accessible via a web link? Because I'm not sure it's easy to attach a document.
Yeah, I was trying to attach. It was not happening. So maybe we can give.
I'm sure we can find one. Universal Human Needs NVC in Google, and to find a link for them.
I can share that. I'll find that.
Thank you so much. So the link to the needs will be shared. And step 2 is that you look at the needs list, and together with your partner, you connect to the needs beneath the judgments. And you can write down the needs in another, if you're on the whiteboard, you can write them down in another color, and then you can see the contrast the same way we did. And just notice what happens inside yourself, both on the, if you're the one on the guessing side, if you're the one supporting your partner, and if you're yourself working with your own judgments. Notice what happens when you see them next to each other. I hope that makes sense.
Is that clear for everybody? So Noemi has typed the instructions in the chat, right? You can see that in the chat. We're going to be sending you in breakout rooms of 2 people. So I'm hoping that at least one of you will have understood in each room, and otherwise you can maybe I think come back in plenary or something and let us know. But everything's in the chat. And Shami, you're going to be sharing. I think it's important.
Share it. Yeah, I just shared it. I've shared a link.
I don't see it in the chat, Shami.
I don't.
It's okay. It's going to. It's not going to all of you. Just give me a second. I can't. Everyone. Okay, I got it now. Yeah.
I'll redo the perfect.
Yeah,
so as we do that, I noticed some people may have just joined the meeting. So you're going to be diving straight into the action. We're going to have a practice in pairs of a non-violent communication technique. And if Noemi can paste again the instructions for anybody joined, you will have until, so here in France, it's 4:22. We will go until 4:40 maximum. So for about 15 minutes, which means you might want to watch the time so that each of you have a turn. You can take up to 5-6 minutes per person. So it's a bit faster, of course, than what you would like, or you just choose to focus on one case study. But that's the time you have in pairs, and you can manage your time as you wish in that.
Maybe what I can say or suggest, Charlotte, is that we send a signal when it's half time, and you can choose whether to continue with the same person or whether to switch, depending on how complete it feels.
Perfect.
And maybe to add also that Shami and Adam and we can jump between the rooms to offer support in case it's needed.
That's good. Great. Okay. Have fun. I think Noemi's going to send us all in pairs. So I hope that it all worked for you. I see smiles around on the screen, so I have a sense that it has been a positive experience for most of you. Great. So, I think, is everybody back? Thank you very much for playing along and for opening up maybe to a complete stranger. That takes trust and empathy. So that in itself is a good exercise. I'm inviting you to put down in the chat any initial reactions or thoughts about how you experienced this exercise. But now I think we have a few. Actually, let me do a live check on our program. Adam, Gina, and Shami, what do you feel best? Going into 3 groups or hearing from people here in the
I think
plenary?
we can hear from people in the big group, maybe 5 minutes. Just on chat, people can put it.
We basically have 15 minutes together before going into our little closing. So what's best? Going into 3 groups, 3 smaller groups, or staying in the group here? What do you feel like?
Do you have any preference, Charlotte?
I'm open. Gina and Adam, what do you prefer?
My preference would be to stay together, just to harvest whatever happened and what was important, maybe some questions. Just my preference.
I see Gina nodding and Shami was suggesting we
I'm
stay.
also okay with that.
Yeah, I'm feeling the same thing. It's, let's stay as a
Yeah.
group. Wonderful. So that means the floor is open. We'd love to hear from you if you have any reactions. Is there something you'd like to share about the experience or more questions? Bearing in mind, this is just an appetizer, of course. We can't.
And we can begin this round by people putting in chat, and then those who want to speak can also speak. So it kind of activates the room,
Sounds
so 1 or 2 insights that you got from it, any learning that you got from this,
Yeah. What struck you from this exercise? You can write it in the chat, or you can raise your hand and share orally. Tony, go ahead.
Oh, your mic is muted.
Sorry. Yeah, no, I froze for a sec. Yeah, basically, I thought it was a great exercise because although the situation that I described wasn't, quite frustrating at the time, I'd processed it and, like just sort of moved on from it. But this exercise helped me to basically analyze myself and see that, next time I'm in that sort of situation, I could possibly do this final analysis at the beginning and sort of, basically dissolve the frustration very much at the point that I'm feeling it.
Like, you mean when you did the exercise, it somehow reduced the charge that you experienced and it gave you some clarity?
Well, it dissolved it completely, because although my frustration in that situation, I had basically, worked through it relatively quickly, let's say down to, dissolved it down to at least 50% or less. This exercise basically has, completely put a line under it, and it's nothing. It also helped when I'm in the same situation to then possibly communicate one more time and actually, say to the other person, hey, I'm feeling a bit frustrated because, and then say it in a nice way. So you could actually also find, like resolve it there and then as well in a nice way.
Like it equips you for the future in a sense.
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you, Tony.
Steph?
Yes, I'm not on mute. One thing that came up for me that I found interesting was of realizing that some of my frustrations were actually not against the person I was talking about, but against the system within which both of us were embedded. And by acknowledging that, I think it would enable greater collaboration with people that you have to work with to resolve problems, because you then make the frustrations one step removed, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Gina, Adam, or Shami, I'm going to keep accepting the hands raised, but if you want to step in at any point, please.
Oh, I'm happy to hear people. I'm also reading the chat messages. They're really nice. I mean, there's a lot of people are writing a lot.
Great. Thanks for all your contributions. Now, Lawrence.
Yes. I'm in the sharing. I'm Lawrence singing down
Lawrence, could you maybe turn off your video?
And in the sharing, I came to learn. Yes.
Yeah, maybe, yes, turn on. Perfect. Go ahead. Try again. Thank you. You can unmute and speak without the video, but because before the connection.
Okay.
Yeah,
yes.
Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, we just had a rainstorm, so the network is bad. But I was just trying to say that in the process to control your jackal to get out, I have chosen to put myself in the hands of the other person who did wrong, as in when you have done wrong and sometimes someone has expressed it by the way they are behaving, it's nice for you to respond quickly, give them humor, give them support to avoid them to get their jackal out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Dishu, please go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So I'm just curious, in the context of food systems, if you have two people, one a policymaker, the other a farmer who is struggling, has got a family to feed, and has much more, what can I say? It's a highly charged situation. So the policymaker has whatever X amount of money and has to be, divided. And we have this farmer who has really done his absolute best, but now he's literally struggling here, struggling for survival. How does one use NVC in that situation?
Yeah, can I go?
Yes.
Okay. The issue. So yeah, so you are talking of a very real situation. And I think the story in this is the structural power, probably, because some people are also in a more powerful position. And if somebody don't have the resources, then there's a lot of pain and a lot of charge and a lot of helplessness. And then you have not both at the same level also. To,
Exactly.
But in that moment, I think I like this Miki Kashtan's work also. Like, how do you raise your capacity? Like so one part I can say it can sound very theoretical, but what I can be helpful is that the farmer who's there has to first of all believe that he has really beautiful needs, even if they are not accepted by the other person.
Okay. Yes.
So like if if they want their family to survive, if they want the land to survive, or whatever, so they have to have this trust that what I'm asking is a gift for the whole world and for myself also, and come from that place. And one thing that they can remember is not to kind of demonize the policymaker, not to see them as an enemy. Of course, they have the more control and power. So that is something that could help little bit. And self-empathy is one place where they can really, appreciate their need, that no matter what is going on, their need is beautiful, That's all I can say, but maybe others can contribute to this.
Adam.
Yeah, I would like to add something to what Shami shared, but it resonates as well. Dishu, thank you very much for bringing this. To me, this is a situation of a gap in privilege and power, right? This is what we are having: a policymaker, all the privileges, and this farmer with no resources or with low resources. And for me, the big question is where NVC is in that. Is it only about communication? I don't think so. For me, this is the example where the interpersonal level is not so powerful, because we put on the shoulders of that farmer to communicate. So in this case, this dimension of interpersonal communication is not so interesting. And I would just love to look at the systemic level, like Miki Kashtan. Hey, how can we change the rules? It's not about one conversation. It's about the rules we are living in. And there's a lot of pain and there's a lot of inequality, of course, in that. So for me, it's always a choice whether I go for interpersonal work, or especially in a power and privilege gap, we just need to know our needs, unite, mobilize, and change the system.
Yeah, I think I'll just add one more line, that, to see in that who are the allies, and to build community. I mean, so other thing is that, like, power is not static. You know, like a child who, if you don't give them something, they can lie down on the floor and cry on the street, you know. So they have power. So that power can be mobilized through the other people, through bringing more community. So not to think that they are not in power, but they might have to do other things to get in the power. And as Adam is saying, to create other systems which give power and access those, because this system is not giving me power. So there's a limit to which the system is giving me that power. Thank you. That's it.
And if I see you, David, I just want to come in here also with referring to that experience I mentioned earlier, where I was facilitating an encounter last week at the local level between policymakers and farmers. And actually what was interesting is one of them was a farmer and a parliamentarian, both at the same time. And what was interesting in the conversation is that the farmers got to express their frustrations and their difficulties, but the policymakers also got to explain the challenges they have in having to negotiate and reach compromise and express the pressures they're under, and the fact that no matter what they do, there's always somebody to complain. And so the opportunity for both parties to express their difficulties helped kind of appease the conversation, and then helped a deeper level of sharing. It wasn't with NVC, but I could see that with NVC that would go even deeper. But not to say that we shouldn't be looking at the systemic level. And thanks, Gina, for putting in writing the reference that Adam was referring to. Thank you, and for a great question. David, please come in.
Yeah, thank you all. I think the session is so interactive. We are also learning from different aspects of culture and different formations with their different experience. One of the key things I think that I really learned with my partner when we were in the sharing room is we converse and realize that most of our problems, either small or big, but more or less there's a place or where we always converge. Like issues with the leadership, limitation, you will get like, those are some of the needs that we always have together as a people in this globe. The other thing is understanding. And of course, even in the policy, because you need someone to understand the policy before that policy being put in place and start the implementation. The other aspect is the communication. In fact, even in the family, at the family level, we normally have conflicts because somebody has not been understood. And sometimes the way you communicate something is different with the way I may communicate something. For example, I may say in the morning like, hi, but that hi to someone else, it means a separate thing. So those are challenges that even some of our needs that are not informed by certain language barriers. Yeah, the other thing is support. Sometimes you need psychosocial support. You are low, even at a place of work. You, in as much as you try to empathize with some of your colleagues, but they will want to do things that are contrary, that maybe you are feeling low, you're feeling high. And so that alone is not something that really is, you can condone all the time. But you realize that if there is no a good understanding, even in our institutions, then automatically most of our needs are not going to be met. The other thing is collaboration. You want to do something with a colleague or a partner, and you realize they're thinking towards certain issues are more of different totally. The other thing is the mental health, which is actually, you may have a problem at workspace, you may have a problem at home, but then when you meet with the people, that thing still crops in your mind. You are there, but still thinking about the issue which was at home, the issue which was at work. So these are some of the things that I realized, and they are coming, both of us. Like you are there, but maybe the same problem that you are realizing mentally is the same problem and the same issue that I'm realizing here. but then the way we can communicate them, the way we can express them always differ. But anyway, I appreciate, this is my first time for such kind of a meeting, but I really get that it is heading somewhere, and I really appreciate the COFSA. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. Anyway,
Thank you.
I'm so grateful.
And may I ask where you're joining us from, David? You have beautiful sunshine there.
I'm joining from Kenya, East
nice.
Africa. Yeah.
Beautiful.
I'm joining from Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you. So I see 2 hands up, but we're getting very close to our closing time. Michael and William, if I give you 30 seconds each max, you can go ahead. Is that okay, Michael?
Michael, I'm sorry I came in late and I was not able to be partnered. But using the example of the policymaker and the farmer, you know, sometimes we make assumptions that the policymaker is so powerful. And we may think that the farmer is so powerless. Yet, in reality, if we are to make a way ahead of that, the farmer would need to learn what are some of the issues, the policy issues, learn about the position of the policymaker. And it will also be good for the policymaker to learn about the situation of the farmer. It is from that learning on both sides that some way forward can be done. But sometimes when we make that assumption that the policymaker is so powerful and therefore the farmer is not powerful, and therefore if there's no communication, then we may not have a way forward. I'm talking from Uganda, a neighbor to my previous speaker from Kenya.
Beautiful. Thank you, and greetings to Uganda. No, very, very important words of wisdom. We need to understand each other and be curious about each other. I hope I'm pronouncing your name okay.
Great. Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, to just go on very quickly, first of all, it was very nice to share with Mrs. Carol. It's like she's like a mentor, even though that I don't know her, but being in a professional field, it's nice to share what we are experiencing at mid-senior career, for example, and the challenges that we face, and sharing situations together really help us to boost our motivation to be more efficient in our work, and to share the solutions that we made in different countries. This is a very important thing. So thank you for this webinar. This is why I am sharing this, and this is why I am attending this kind of webinars and the meetings. The second one is I really share it with the colleague from Uganda. So the one when he said about policymakers, it's really important to have this communication and to put each other in how to say it, like we have to know what is happening, like for example with people and policy makers, and to in order to dissipate what is happening to farmers, and to just make them and to give them the information with a very simple way, because we have grades and we have to accept this. They are the ones who are doing policy, and they are the ones who are in direct contact with farmers, and the ones who are framing entrepreneurship and doing entrepreneurs. It's really important to be all the time in an amazing communication, and to know what everyone is doing in order to share as much as possible our experience and our outputs. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure, and I can't wait to share with you more sessions. Thank you.
Wonderful. And you're calling from, William?
From Tunisia. We have a very beautiful sun also.
Okay, well, thank you all so much for joining, and we're certainly going to continue building on this in other consciousness practice sessions. We're also going to be talking about farmers' mental well-being on the 5th of October. We just have 2 minutes together. I ask each one of our speakers to give a 10-second thought or goodbye message. We put in the chat how each people can stay in touch with you. Gina, a word or a quick sentence.
Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed being with you all, and I enjoy the engagement and being together with what unites us, the qualities that unite us from people all around the world in a language that crosses all borders.
Thank you. Shami.
Yeah, I enjoyed the diversity. And one thing that I would like to say that put emphasis on, just as like for any system to work, it needs systems, you know. So if we are bringing alliances, you know, we need to have very good tools for making those alliances run, because we have tools for a control and command structure, but we do not have tools for collaboration. So I would just say that whoever here are doing any grassroots work or working with other teams, but they need to try to bring in more creative tools which support collaboration, because we are so used to the tools of control and command system. So thank you.
Thank you. Adam.
Thank you, everyone. I'm glad I was here, and I'm very grateful to you for what you are doing as a citizen of this planet. And the last message for me, the nonviolent communication, for me, it's an operating system for connection and collaboration and whatever else. And if you dig deeper, you will find that it's not only a communication, it's also action. There are more layers to it. So I just want to encourage you to explore it more if you have time, and that's it.
Beautiful. Thank you. And I close by handing over to our wonderful facilitator who makes all of these events possible. Noemi, how can people stay engaged? What's coming up next in the community?
Thank you. It was a wonderful session. Thank you, everyone. And yes, so next week on the 5th of October, we have another session on farmers' well-being and psychological resilience. So I put the link in the chat so you can register. And I also put some link in the chat if you want to become a member of the Alliance. There is an application form that you can fill, and just type again in the chat. So yeah, let's stay connected. Follow us on LinkedIn, on YouTube, and this session will be uploaded on YouTube as well. So thank you very much, everyone, for joining us, and see you next time. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Noemi.
And don't
Bye,
hesitate
Charlotte.
to invite your friends to join us.
Bye.
Thank you so much again. Bye, everyone.